Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and today we are going to be talking about some interesting subjects ranging over quite a few topics: accountability, faith, overload, and the suppression of your faith, as well as just your personality in general, wherever it may be, whether it's a family function, a social gathering, or most importantly, in where it is most common, the workplace. We are here with Robert J. Hunt, not Oppenheimer. I know some of you were hoping a couple of nukes was going to have one of the nuke masters himself on the show, but we've got a pretty cool guy, the accountability guy, Robert J. Hunt, and it's pretty awesome. And for those of you not watching on YouTube, listening as a podcast, I am in some mountainous area somewhere because sometimes when you have to hold yourself accountable, you have to go on a bit of a journey to some of the harshest points and lowest points of your life to reflect on everything. So, Mr. Hunt, would you please introduce yourself a little bit here for us?
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast. I'll introduce myself as Robert J. Hunt, the accountability guy. I'm married to the most beautiful woman in any room. And I've been married to my beautiful wife, Kathy, for 25 years, and she is truly my best friend. I'm
Pretty awesome.
enjoying my days with her these last couple of years as we've taken accountability for our lives. It's made life a whole lot better. I have two grown-up children. Lauren is 33, lives in Austin with her husband, Dylan. And James is 22, and he's still living with us as he finishes up his last year of college and ready to branch out into the world. And I live in the North Dallas area, just north of Dallas in the North Texas area.
Oh
We've
yeah.
been here since 2010. I grew up in Southern California. I've been on four television shows. I'll have to tell you about that sometime. But we moved here in 2010 to get away from the that sucking sound of California, which is it going down the drain, and to be able to come to Texas, which is the
Yeah.
greatest country in America. And so we love being here and we love being a part of the community. And so my focus these days is I run business groups for business owners and CEOs here in DFW. They're peer groups. That means everyone gets together every month and we learn from each other and we talk about our challenges and we get smarter and make decisions because we have input from others that encourage us. It's a great source of accountability. And that's the main part of my business. And we wrote this book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, back in 2022. And we are trying to let the world know about what it is and the principles that are shared, which is accountability and the freedom and power that comes when you live a life of accountability.
Amen to that. And yeah, California definitely going down the drain. Love y'all, California
It
listeners,
is.
though. One of my first comedy gigs I did, I made fun of California. So,
It's easy to
but
do.
yeah, it is pretty easy to, and they love it. Y'all love it. I remember on my ship. So for anyone who's never been in the military, it's mostly people from Texas, Florida, California, New Jersey, and that'll be like 95% of y'all. And then from California, you have two. I learned this because I had never been in California. There's the North and there's the South within
Big difference.
California, and those sailors would clash quite a bit on
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. They wanted you to know whether they were from the north or the south. And just a shameless plug for Dallas, Texas. If y'all haven't been to the aquarium slash zoo there, it is phenomenal. I mean, you walk in it and you're like in a different world. You are in like an actual jungle and underwater. It's awesome. I got the chance to visit it with my best friend from boot camp the summer before. Actually, I think it was last summer. And it
Mm.
was it was amazing. So Dallas is a great area, got a lot going on. Not a walkable city. I walked it. It took me hours to walk it. Luckily, I was young and in shape and
Well,
took
Dallas,
me.
Texas is a big state, man. So everything's
Yeah.
bigger here. So our cities are really spread out because we have room. You go
Yeah.
to New York and you go to LA and everything's packed in tight because there's no
Yep.
room. But Dallas can sprawl for miles and miles and miles. And actually, if you come back to Texas, the new most exciting thing for you to do when you come here is go to eval. Wow, Evo. I can't believe I forgot that. EVA, I'm having a brain melt. EVA is virtual reality gaming facility. It's the only free-ranging virtual reality game facility in America. It's the
Wow.
size of a basketball court, and you go in and you play against other people with the VR goggles on. I can't believe I lost their name, EVA.
That's
And
awesome.
one of my clients started that and brought it to America. and it's the only one in the United States, and it's wicked cool, and the tech is fantastic. So look up eva.gg, and it's a virtual reality gaming place, and it's awesome. You got to go there when you come here next time.
Yeah, not a sponsor, but that sounds amazing. I gotta try that out for sure. I had a pretty good experience. I walked 30 minutes through a construction zone to get to Jack in the Box because they don't have that on the East Coast. And I had to try it. Uh, Walking 30 minutes through Dallas heat in the middle of July, or it was
Baby,
June, but still, June is plenty hot in
it
Texas.
is. It is.
The only
Was it
thing
worth
nice
it?
is no humidity. No humidity. As far as worth it, I mean, Jack in the Box is pretty good. I've it's to me it's a novelty because they don't have it. So it's just like Whataburger and In
Yeah.
and Out. They don't have it on the East Coast, so I think it could be trash quality. But if it's the one time I'm having it, so it does raise up its value. Yeah, but we're gonna get into things here today. So we talked about the military service and where people are from, and that's part of the military culture, and sure for colleges as well, but especially the military more than anything, a melting pot of diverse people from different states, different cultures, different backgrounds, different countries even. In boot camp we had people from different countries, and their routines were just a little bit different than ours, and some of their beliefs, and it's very interesting to learn all of it. I came from a very closed, sheltered home, so it was definitely a shock for me, as it is for most people. A lot of Navy sailors come from landlocked states and don't know how to swim. So it's very interesting to know that, like,
Really?
I want to say 85 to 90% of my boot camp division could not swim. They could, quote, swim by the end of boot
Like
camp.
not drowned.
They could pass the swim test, so
Okay.
to speak,
Yeah.
under lifeguard supervision. But yeah, hopefully they never have to actually swim. It's funny, a little siren, but my roommate didn't know how to swim and he was afraid of drowning and he was terrified. And it's an ironic cycle. You don't swim because you're terrified of drowning, but if you knew how to swim, you'd be less likely to
You
drown.
wouldn't drown. Yeah.
And he chose a
Yeah.
submarine distinctly for the reason that there is no drowning, that you are dead if that thing explodes. He goes, if I'm on an aircraft carrier, Mr. Whiskey, I might land in the water. I don't want to drown. He goes, so the submarine, something happens, most likely I won't drown. I'll die some other horrific way, being steamed alive or exploded, or I have a thing of strawberry flavored bleach in case the water does start filling in and I have no choice but to swim. So, interesting
Wow.
guy.
Wow. All that workaround just to avoid learning how to swim.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, just learn how to swim, just enough to at least do the doggy paddle or something. It is insane. It does make me laugh.
Oh
Joining a
man.
submarine solely for the totally different lifestyle, just to avoid the possible chance he might end up over the side of the ship, which
Man, that's a great analogy for accountability where people refuse to take accountability for something. They'll do some ridiculous workaround rather than own it. They'll make this whole other adventure of a
excuses.
life that is
Yeah.
avoiding something rather than owning it. And that's a great example.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right with that, and we talked recently on my episode How to Be an Extraordinary Man about alcoholics making excuses to continue drinking rather than hold themselves accountable. My father, for example, oh, it's not hard liquor, it's soft liquor, or it's a holiday, or, I've often been the case of excuse, oh, son, it's your birthday, but like you said, people will make all kinds of excuses. And what I want
Yeah.
to get into is, like we talked before recording here, was the suppression of faith within the workplace, especially the military. I was part of a Bible study group where the people were expressing that they felt like they couldn't pray at their meals, that they couldn't attend the religious sessions hosted by the ship, which is a set aside time hosted specifically for that. But for some reason, they were, you know, embarrassed to do it because not a lot of people were doing it. They were embarrassed to pray for before eating their meal, even if it was a quick silent prayer. I know Ash Wednesday for people of the Catholic faith, they were, didn't want to get the ashes on their forehead because most people in the military, I remember my Navy ship at the time I was Catholic. I am in a spiritual exploration of Catholicism, Christianity right now, but still a believer in, as far as the practice of Ash Wednesday at the time, I was partaking in that. And I remember so many people didn't know what that was. They thought that I had been pranked, that someone had put something on my forehead and I didn't know. And having originally gone to a private school where everyone in school had it on their forehead, and then going to a public school where it was still a lot of Catholic people, to suddenly go to the military and they like disappeared. It just like disappeared, you know? So it's interesting. We talk about the suppression of faith and the confliction of morals, which is an issue for some people in the military, confliction of morals, same with workplaces. And one of the things that is newer is the suppression of faith or just personality to conform to social media, especially trends and to whatever will get you more views, attention, money. And this whole episode ties greatly into the last one, which was about conformity. And part of not holding yourself accountable is because you're conforming to others. And holding yourself accountable might allow you to be the person that they don't want you to be. So, as the accountability guy, I'd love for you to get into what exactly you mean when we're holding ourselves accountable, because that can entail a lot of things. And we always hear hold each other accountable, hold other people accountable, and hold ourselves accountable. People often think, all right, it's disciplining ourselves after we've done something wrong, but it's much more than that. So, can you elaborate on how much deeper
Yeah. Yeah,
accountability?
the simple definition of accountability is you own it. It's yours. And so the fact, with that in mind, nobody can hold anyone else accountable. I can't hold you accountable because only you can hold yourself accountable if you really want to. Part of the reason why people don't live out what they say they believe is because they really don't believe it. They've grown up with it. It's an obligation. It's a ritual. It's a
Mm,
thing. It's
yep.
like everyone, if you're American, you're a Christian, like you're kind of lumped into that category, and you're not. And what happens is when we get older and we start going out into the world, we start to test those things and we realize, I never really believed in that. I just kind of did it because everybody did it. And that's my family did
Yeah.
it. And that's everyone I know did it. But when you get out on your own, you have to think about, well, am I going to keep doing it? That's when it fades away because it never was really real. And so I think the challenge is for us to really know, what is it that I believe? I would think half the people, maybe more, at my church who go to church every Sunday have no idea what they believe. They just, someone dragged into church, they know they should go to church. But if you ask them some questions and say, well, what does this mean? They'd be like, oh, I don't know. I'm coming here to hear the guy talk. And so I think as you get older, you have to, well, anytime in your life, you really should own what you believe, what you think. And it really doesn't come down to having to own it until you get no choice. When you're a kid, you have no choice because your parents tell you what to do. And then you get older, you have the freedom and you kind of go, oh, I think I'll do this or that, but you might kind of be halfway this and halfway that. And it's not till it comes up and you have to choose by the lifestyle you live, the way you spend your money, who you vote for, what job you take. All these things are in light of who you really are. And a lot of people just negate that to whatever's in front of me, and they flip back and forth so fast because they don't really know what they want. And I think that's the challenge is for you to really identify, what do you want your life to be like? What do you believe? What do you care about? And take some time to own that because it's the if you're going down a path and there's two choices and you don't really know what you believe, either choice is fine. But if you really know what you want and you have a purpose behind your life, it's very clear that's the way to go. Or maybe they're both really good, but that one's a little better because it's going more towards the way I want to go. So all these things that we get to do in our lives, the freedoms we have, they've got to be centered on something. There's got to be some kind of point that helps us decide what to do. To me, that's my faith in Christ. That's a big deal to me. And I've learned about him and through the word of God, and I've understood, and I have a relationship with Jesus where I talk to him and I hear him through the Bible and I understand the word of God. But if that's not your faith, then own whatever your faith is. I mean, be really good at it. Don't just do it. It's like kind of like a part-time gig. If I was to all of a sudden come to work and forget that I was married and just start hitting on other girls, it'd be like really weird that when I'm at work, I just kind of run around and talk to everybody I want to like I'm not married. That'd be weird. But to do that with your faith just means it's really not real to you. I am really, really happy being married to Kathy. I love her and I would never do anything to hurt her heart. And that's the same way I feel about my relationship with Christ. I'm really, really in love with God. I know who He is. He loves me. And so I wouldn't do anything to hurt His heart or to disrespect Him because I love Him. So I think you need to get back to grounded to who really are you? What do you really believe? And once you really, really, really own that, it's a lot easier to live out what you believe.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that those are all great points. And can you kind of talk with us about, when people are not holding themselves accountable? Well, first, ladies and gentlemen, to hold yourself accountable to listening to every episode, you should feel free to subscribe and follow this podcast and make sure you're
Well
holding
done,
yourself
well done.
accountable. A shameless plug. But what I was going to say is, we talked about the role this plays in mental health because people often don't realize that maybe they had this feeling that something's eating away at them. Some people just shut down and lock it away, right? When people are suppressing their personalities, their faiths, and, whatever it is, and not holding themselves accountable because of the workplace, because of conformity, because of social media or family, you know, what are some of the long lasting impacts and effects this can have that people might not even realize?
Yeah, you learn to play a victim role and you stay with it your whole life and you're always miserable. That's probably the worst consequence I can imagine. Subtly, we play the victim role without even being aware of it. And the way that we play a victim role, we outline this in our book, is that you blame. When something comes up, you blame someone or something.
Yeah,
If that doesn't work, you make an excuse as to why something didn't get done. And if that doesn't work, then you just say, well, I can't. I can't do anything about it. I don't have any authority. I don't have any power. Or the last one is you just wait and you just wait and hope it gets better. And all four of those things keep you as a victim, but we all do it. We all do it. Pick a category and you'll look at why you're not happy with that category and you'll have a blame or an excuse or say you can't, or you'll wait and hope and think maybe it'll get better next year. And that's how my beautiful wife, Kathy, and I were in 2019, where we had got $90,000 into debt. And that didn't include the house or the cars. And we were miserable. And we blamed the economy. We blamed our customers. We blamed our partners. We blamed each other. We blamed God. And we were just in a bad place. And we realized that we're not happy. So in the book that we created, we put these satisfaction wheels, these two wheels with pie pieces in them. And we want you to declare, where are you satisfied or not? And when you look at honestly, when you honestly look at your life and you declare where you're satisfied or not, then you have to look at that and go, okay, now what am I going to do about that? If I'm not happy with my faith, I'm not happy with my health, I'm not happy with my finances, what am I going to do about it? And if you blame, make excuse, say you can't, or wait and hope in any of those areas, you are playing a victim. And you don't see that as a victim role, but it's what you're doing because victims have no power, no authority. You can't do anything about it. You're just screwed. But if I take accountability for those categories and I go, look, I'm not happy with my health. I'm not happy with my finances. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do this. I'll make a plan and you start to work towards it. And we tell you about in the book the four things that trap you up as a victim. And then we tell you how to make a plan and get it done. So it's a workbook. It's really to help you define what you want your life to look like and then do something about it. So I think rather than live life as a victim and be miserable all the time, I think having authority over those things and having the opportunity to change it is way better way to live your life.
for sure. And again, ladies and gentlemen, in the description below, we'll have the links to that book. And can you plug the name again?
The name of the book is Nobody Cares Until You Do.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I'm going to express two old sayings that tie really well into what we're talking about. First one being, you can't help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. And if they're not holding themselves accountable on some level, they don't want to help themselves because they know
Yeah,
that in order to do so, they're going to have to be held responsible for their actions or make a decision. And then the second, very famous one, you can take a horse to a river, but you can't make it drink the water. You can even give them the cup. You can even, fill up the water into a cup and all that,
yeah,
and people usually apply it to students. We can give you the books and the audio and all the knowledge to study, but we can't force you to study. And the same thing with accountability. We can tell you all the things you need to do, all the things you shouldn't do, and all this advice and information, but ultimately you have to make the decision to, apply that to your life. And now, Mr. Hunt, what we're really curious about is you talk about being in a financial crisis and other stuff. So kind of enroll with that, what made this revelation in your life about accountability and about holding yourself accountable? What other factors kind of played into it? Was it a single moment or kind of a gradual thing where you realized we need to change how we're living? We need to hold ourselves accountable.
yeah. That's where we were in 2019. I'd been running peer groups since 2012, and I watched business owners be either people who are accountable or not, and in different areas of their life and in their business. And I watched those who were accountable rocket. And even though the journey was hard, they still had the outcome they wanted. And those who weren't willing to be accountable struggled underneath it and suffered. So I watched it. And that's the whole purpose of a peer group. If you get together with a guy's Bible study group, you're coming together and you're talking about the things that you're struggling with and your desires and what you want so they can encourage you in your journey. They don't make you do anything, but they can help you. It's the same thing with the peer groups I run. And so in 2019, we had got so screwed up in our finances, but we were blaming, making excuses, saying we can't do anything about it and just waiting and hoping it got better every year. And it wasn't until September of that year I got vertigo for 16 days. I never had vertigo before. That was really annoying. You're constantly sick. You can't sit up. You can't lay down. You
Yeah,
can't sleep. It's just debilitating. And at the end of it, I thought, okay, that's God's wake up call. Hey, get your act together, boy. And so we decided, okay, we got to sell our house and start over. And so we put the house on the market because, I could blame, I could make excuses, but when it came to I saying I can't sell the house and use the money that's in the house to get out of debt, I could, I just didn't want to. And a lot of times we say I can't, but we really mean I won't. And
yeah,
have you tried everything possible? Well, I didn't. I tried as much as I wanted to. I tried as much as I felt that I could handle, but there was more, and so I didn't want to do it until I got to that point where I was sick of it, and I said I got to change. This is a saying we say in the book a lot: when the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you're going, you will change. And that's what it was for Kathy and I. We were just at the end of our rope. We just knew we had to make that change. But taking accountability for our lives and our finances that day, it helped us sell the house and start over, pay off all our debt. And when we got out of debt, the clarity and the peace in our lives was unbelievable. And we were able to see things with confidence and not be walking in fear. So that was the turning point, was that day we decided to start with that one area. And that trickled into all other areas of our life, from our marriage to our faith to our health. All those things became something we could work on going forward because we had kicked this one thing out the door.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it's what can be difficult about it is how I feel is that you talk about the pain of where you're going being less than where you're at now. But oftentimes it can be very difficult for us to see that it's going to be better because we have these doubts, we have these anxious thoughts, we have all this worry. And so, what are some things we can do to help alleviate, all of that stuff, specifically like we're someone we know we need to hold ourselves accountable, we need to do this, but we have all these other negative aspects holding us back, these
Yeah.
chains that are, keeping down our accountability. What are some things we can do to help alleviate that?
Yeah, we talk about this in the book that one of the things you have to do is you have to put it in writing. When you
Mm,
put it in writing, the reality and the truth of it is more evident. A lot of times the junk that spins around in our head is just this head trash that tells us lies. So by putting it in writing, you declare what's really going on and you share it with someone. You go, like, this is my life. This is my business. This is where I'm not satisfied with something. And having the opportunity to be able to get them to see what's going on, to give them the chance to be aware of your journey and to help you as you walk through that journey with them. And so by putting it in writing, you change the narrative, whether some of these things that spin around our head that lie to us. And then you surround yourself with other people who will encourage you in the journey. So if you do it on yourself alone privately, you can weasel out of it. You go, nah, I'm not going to do it anymore. Well, it's not that bad. You start to talk yourself out of doing it. But if you declare to someone that you know and trust, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to change my life like this. Then they can ask you questions. How's it going? What are you doing now? How's that working out? They don't tell you what to do and they don't make you do anything, but they can ask you. And that little bit of peer pressure will keep you going forward and driving into it. And then set some tiny goals along the way. We always talk about SMART goals in business: specific, measurable, attainable,
yeah.
realistic, time bound, all those things. So be smart. Don't set some giant goal that you then try to and you fail. Set a small one and then tear it up into pieces. But again, inviting people into your journey is what's going to help you from giving up.
Yeah, so what we're saying is the issue with individual accountability as a private journey is it requires absolute integrity, which, is difficult for anyone to maintain if that's not who they are, especially when there are opportunities to, like you said, weasel out of it. So by having others not holding you accountable, but just kind of reminding you, having those background reminders. So that's pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
one thing I want to address is you've talked a lot about how it's helped you business wise and marriage wise. How has your perspective shift on accountability affected you as a father and as a parent?
Well, I want my kids to have the same freedom that I'm experiencing, and I watch them grow up and become people who blame and make excuses, and I see them living lives as victims, and I don't want that for
Mm,
them. And so it is hard for me to convince anybody to do this. You have to do this for yourself. And as a 22-year-old man living in my house, or as a 33-year-old woman married and living in Austin, I don't tell them what to do anymore. I did when they were younger, and they listened to me
yeah.
most of the time, but I certainly at this point do not tell them what to do. But the challenge is for me to say, look, just look at your life, and are you being a victim? And I wrote this book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, because that was what I kept telling my son James as he was growing older. Hey man, nobody cares if you have a bad teacher or a bad coach or a bad anything, because you got to own it. And at the end of the day, when you're married, your wife's not going to care that you got a bad boss. She's going to care that you're not bringing home a paycheck anymore because you got fired.
Mm,
And at the end of the day, you have to learn to practice this skill. And I said it to him so many times, he started getting irritated. Stop saying nobody cares. I'm saying, James, I got to tell this to you so you get this to your head that really nobody does care about your problems. They got their own problems. And so I was trying to impart this into them so they would own that. But they're going to go through it just like I did the hard way. They're going to learn by failing. They're going to learn that nobody really cares whether or not you're happy or this or that. Nobody cares if you're miserable at your work unless you care enough to do something about it. Then when you decide to own it, they'll cheer you on and support you. But this journey is all yours, man. You got to drive it.
yeah, that's for sure. And I know I want to talk a bit about you mentioned peer groups, and I know you have a website and on it you have some of those peer groups listed. Can you talk about, if people are interested in forming their peer groups or joining some of your peer groups, just some advice on that in general?
Yeah, thank you. Everyone should be in a peer group. Everywhere around the world, everyone should be in a peer group. They're easy to start. All you do is invite people to come to a meeting and just talk about what you want to work on together. Peer groups are accountability. That's the whole thing behind it. That's why I wrote this book, is I've been watching people who had accountability or ignored accountability, and how that works. But in a peer group, there are people that are your peers. They're going through similar situations. They don't have to be the same gender. They don't have to be the same age. They don't have to be in the same industry. But they have to be people who are walking through a journey, who are willing to be vulnerable. And if I'm really willing to be honest and vulnerable, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. What's the first thing they do when they have the meeting? Hi, I'm Robert. I'm an alcoholic. They want you to
Right.
own it. They're giving you the opportunity to say it in front of other people. So if you are in a peer group with other leaders and you say, look, I've got a problem with my marriage, or I got a problem with my finances, they're not going to fix it for you, but you can declare to them, this is what you want to do. And then they'll ask you enough questions. Well, how's it going to work? Who's going to do that? What will that cost? And they can make you think about all the different parts so that you make a better decision and encourage you in the process. But I would encourage everyone to be in a peer group. I think it's super powerful. I've watched it for years and seen it change people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. It's great to have those people you can talk to and like you said, not be problem solvers, but part of the beauty of it is they might think of questions or ideas that you can't, in some form we're limited in what we can think just because of the way our brain works and the way our personalities are. So it's great to have
Yeah.
those
And the unconscious
perspectives
bias that you have too. Don't forget, a lot of
for
times
sure.
these decisions, we've been thinking about them for a long time before we ever say or do anything about them. And that unconscious bias affects how we look at them. We think this is a great idea because we've been thinking about it in our brain for months. But when we say it to someone, they're like, what? You're gonna do what? No, 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 no. That is not a good idea. And so you buy into your own version of your story very quickly. And so you need to be aware of the unconscious biases you have so that you don't go down a road that is really not good for you. That's why you tell other people and let them poke at it and ask questions, not to be critical, but to make you really think about it.
For sure, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think especially when it comes to relationships and men and women, sometimes men think a certain way and women don't, vice versa. So if she says she's not hungry and she hasn't eaten all day, maybe it means she is hungry. Don't just take that as it is. Or she says you don't have to get me anything for Valentine's Day. Don't be that guy. But yeah, I think peer groups are great, whether it's with your church, with your school, or just other business leaders, like you said, it's easy to start. And nowadays, there are actually a lot of apps and online platforms that help make it efficient and easy to do. And I think especially with the online aspect of it, the virtual meetings are great because it allows a lot of people from wherever they are to connect all over the world. And like you said, it also forms some great friendships, lifelong friendships. I'm sure you have people from your peer groups, like you said, you've been seeing for years, over the
Yeah.
years. And I'm sure that some of y'all individually get together outside of that, right?
They do quite a bit, and most of my clients have been in the group over 5 years or longer. My very first group member is still a group member 11 years later. But I would say be careful when you join a group, especially an online group. Don't go in one that is very shallow, that just gets people to brag about how smart they are, how cool they are. Get
Yeah.
into one that really does talk about this is what I'm working on. What do I need to think about? And they're actually solving things, they're listening, they're learning from each other. If I walk through a problem that you have that you're dealing with, I learned through your problem. But if you try and spin it in a way that makes you look good, I don't really know what truth is. So you've got to be radically transparent and radically open-minded if you're going to be in a peer group so that people can know what truth is and you can really learn from it.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, same thing with, unfortunately, I've been a part of, you know, kind of presented as Bible study groups or prayer groups. And then, it's not that, unfortunately, especially on the younger side, a lot of them end up being parties. And I'm like, oh, I actually came to study the word, not read 5 lines, say a prayer, and then drink the rest of the night. Um,
Right. Then maybe you got to start your own peer group. You got to have one that mirrors the
yeah,
passion and focus that you want and it challenges people to step up to a higher level of commitment and intentionality and passion. Start your own group and invite people. Hey, this is what I want to do. This is what it looks like. Is this what you want? Come join it. And they're not hard to do. You just got to set the expectations really clear. We're going to be honest, radically honest and open with each other. And not going to spend all our time talking how screwed up we are. We're going to talk about how awesome our God is and how much we want to serve him, what life looks like walking with him, and encourage each other towards that excellent goal. And you can still have a beer afterwards if you want. That's not the point. The point
yeah.
is that you don't want to lose the fact of why you're getting together.
Yeah, and I think you said something really important right there, something critical, which is focusing not in just dwelling on the past or in the current negativity of the issues, but moving forward with a solution. And I know my dad's spoken about some AA groups. He's been to a couple of different ones, some of them just being too much negativity sharing and not enough hopeful, outlooks,
Yeah,
and not just
yeah.
for any addiction group, but just for any group that you're a part of that can be, whether it's for relationships, for everything in life. People sometimes focus too much on the negativity, and some of them develop this mindset that they can never be held accountable for what they've done or what they're failing at because they think they are unworthy of moving forward, whether it's because of their faith or just society or how they feel. Mr. Hunt, what would you speak on about it's never too late to hold yourself accountable? What would you say about that?
Well, none of us are worthy when you think about it. The best
For
of us is
sure.
still well below the standard that God has created this planet for.
That's for
But I
sure.
think it's so cool that God doesn't expect us to be perfect to love us. He loves us. And while we still reject him and want nothing to do with him, he still chases us and says, I love you. I think that's ridiculous that the God of the universe would be that kind of God who would chase us and say, I want to love you and care for you. I want you to know me. I want to take care of you and chase us. And that's really what he does. He chases us. There's nothing you've done that is too bad for God to redeem you. There's nothing you've done that the world can't accept you. I mean, really, there really is nothing. Even murderers on death row can repent and they can find salvation and faith in Christ. And people have forgiving people who've murdered people in their family. And so I know it that we look at our lives and we just get really negative, but that's not what God came to die for. He came to give you freedom, and there is hope in that. I think that's again why you surround yourself with people who won't buy into your bad press. You say lies, you say things to your head that when they come out and you tell someone, people go, no, 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 that's not true. You're awesome. You're great. They can
Yeah.
remind you of truth, but the longer you keep it spinning around your head, the more it haunts you and holds you back. Get it out of your mouth. Let someone else hear it. Someone who's got their act together. Someone who loves you and cares about you, who will speak truth in your life with love. We need to surround ourselves with those kind of people, but there's never something that you're too far gone or too bad or whatever word you want to use that God can't have a plan for your life, a redeeming plan. And you are still awesome and loved by God no matter what you've done.
Amen to that. Yeah. So, Mr. Hunt, before we sign off here, what I'd like to ask you is who should visit your website as well as check out your book?
Anybody really is not satisfied with their life or their business and really wants to change it by creating a culture of accountability. That's what the book's all about. If you want to have a different journey, if you want to change things, go to nobodycaresbook.com and you can learn all about the book, and the chapters are outlined. We made little videos that tell you what each chapter is like. You can order the book online. But don't buy it if you're not going to want to change. If you really want to change your life, if you're really not satisfied with your life and you want to do something about it, that's what we created this book. It's a workbook to walk you through step by step of the things you need to do to be aware of where you play the victim and how to move to a victorious mindset and lifestyle. For your particular podcast, I created a special link, which is nobodycarespod.com. And anybody who puts in Mr. Whiskey as the code word, I will email a copy of my book to them at no charge. For the first two people who fill out that contact form with their address, I'll mail you a copy of the book. Because I want someone who really wants to change to have a copy. I don't want to hold it back. If they can't afford it, I'd be glad to give it to them for free.
Awesome. Well, Mr. Hunt, thank you so much for coming on the show. Might have to have you back on an episode just to, kind of BS about Texas and other stuff and, all the
Yeah.
fun things you get into outside of being accountable for sure. But I appreciate you coming on the show and what you do. And ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to, kind of take a step back and reevaluate your life in terms of accountability. And I think focusing back on, you know, is it that you can't or that you don't want to? And I think the biggest thing Mr. Hunt said for y'all to pay attention to is, are you just waiting for things to get better? And if you are, how long have you been waiting? And how long are you willing to wait? And is that waiting more painful than what is going to be about it? Or will changing from not waiting to taking action be the best course? So definitely evaluate that. But ladies and gentlemen, be sure to check out the website, the book, all those links in the description below, and share it with whoever needs to hear this. But Mr. Hunt, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.